So when Amorim joined, a huge defence of his 5 at the back formation was the fact that Chelsea, under previous managers, they won the Champions League under Tuchel and they won the Premier League under Conte. They were all with very similar formations, but I'm very sceptical of these systems. Can they work long term in the Premier League? I'm still yet to make my mind up. So I went back and I watched the Champions League final between Chelsea and Man City to see Tuchel's system in full flow, to see how it worked at the very highest level of football, and I was astonished at how much I actually learned from this game.
This is my hard drive, and it only makes sense to put things in there that are useful.
Straight away, just looking at the formation, it's exactly the same as how Amorim sets United up. Clock mount in that left 10. If he can play in that left 10 position like he did for Chelsea under Amorim, then honestly, he might actually recoup that huge fee that we paid for him. Because if he can do that role, it'd be a game changer in Amorim's system. But we'll have to wait and see. The rest of it, obviously you've got the wing-backs, quite defensive ones in Chilwell and James. That's what Amorim has done so far at United. Kante in midfield, doing that sort of Ugarte role, breaking up play. Jorginho, more of a passer, doing that sort of Fernandes role. Werner up top, we know his finishing is not great, but he does run those channels. Something that Højlund has done to great effect recently for United as well. And now looking at this final, it was COVID times, people had their masks on. Well, kind of. But Chelsea did go into this game as massive underdogs, but they did very much limit anything the big old cheaters had to offer.
You're so funny.
The biggest thing I did note from it wasn't just the formation, sort of how it looked on paper. Tuchel's system, Amorim, they are carbon copies of each other. How they set their teams up, how they want their players to play, pretty much identical, and I was fascinated by that. And honestly, there's just so much to talk about from this one game. Before I get into it though, guys, please make sure you subscribe. Means so much. Drop a like if you enjoy as well. Let's get into it.
Go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
I'll break my analysis up in stages. Most of my game slides are going to be from the first half, as after Chelsea scored late in the first half, it was very much sort of defence versus attack. So there's not much to say about that second half of this game. But the way Chelsea centre-back stepped up to block those midfield gaps, that's exactly what we've seen under Amorim in his best games in charge. When United centre-backs have been aggressive, especially those wide centre-backs, stopping that space in midfield, that's been United's best games under Amorim. When we decide not to do it, then the opposition have a field day. And they're going to if you're going to allow those spaces. But it was so clear in this one, Chelsea's wide centre-backs, Rudiger and Azpilicueta, they were so aggressive and they were really, really obviously well-tuned from Tuchel into doing that role, stopping that progression from Man City. Straight off, you can see, got so many examples of it. Rudiger, Azpilicueta, they know their jobs. They're ready to pounce. A little bit later, you can see Azpilicueta, as soon as someone from Man City moves into that area, steps up from that back 5 into that midfield, stopping the ball easily going into De Bruyne and him turning round with it. A little bit later, De Bruyne has gone to the other side. Rudiger this time now is matched up onto him. Again, Azpilicueta, this time I think it's on Zinchenko, stepping up onto him. You've got to do that. It's so important. You've got to stop him getting that easy progression, stop him getting the ball turning, heading towards your own box. The pressing and the ability to also defend out wide is a huge aspect of having these wide centre-backs in that back three system. Something United now are currently struggling with a lot is just the personnel in those wide centre-back areas. Rudiger, very mobile, suited for that system. Azpilicueta, he could play at full-back, could play wing-back, could be centre-back, very much suited to that formation. United don't quite have that at the minute, just fitting those square pegs in round holes hasn't always worked. In terms of high pressing, Chelsea didn't do it at all in this game. Amorim at United has struggled to implement that high press. It can be done in a three-at-the-back system, but obviously having so many players in that defensive line, it's harder to step out and really press the opposition high. I'll have to watch more games from Chelsea under Tuchel and Conte to see if they did have a high press at all, but in this Champions League final, they opted not to stay in that mid-block. But it did work. But obviously, again, it's a point, does it work in competitions and not quite in the Prem? But I'm going to have to do more analysis on that. But now I'm going to talk about the similarities with the ball, and In terms of deep progression, Chelsea again were very limited in this game, and they faced a lot of issues actually that Amorim is currently facing at United. There was no pushing the centre-back forward like Amorim keeps trying to do at United to not so great effect at the minute. But Chelsea, much like United, were easily forced out wide, forced to eventually kick it long, and is something that we've seen constantly under Amorim at United so far as well. Here you can see Mendy with the ball. It goes out to Rudiger. When Rudiger has that ball, he's no option really in field. There's only Kante there. Kante and Jorginho both being marked. The ball ends up being played upfield. It's hopeful. And then it's risky there. You can see it. If obviously Man City win that ball, there's a heavy chance of a quick transition and they're in Chelsea's half ready to attack that box. So it is a little bit risky playing those hopeful balls, trying to win those duels higher up the pitch. But this was essentially Chelsea's tactic throughout the game. They got forced out wide, they would just hit the channel, usually trying to find Havertz in that right 10 spot. That was the usual tactic. Not necessarily a bad thing. You can see Arsenal do it with Havertz these days as well. But you are relying on those duel winners higher up the pitch. Again, United don't really have the personnel a lot of the times because they do just lack duel winners. And it's something that we're trying to rectify, but we do definitely need more of them in the squad. Another major tactic that both Tuchel and Amorim use at the minute is the striker running those channels. It's trying to get their team higher up the pitch. Seeing Højlund do it, as I mentioned just in our last game, Tuchel had Werner doing it in these games. Giroud coming off the bench, a little bit less mobile. They did eventually sign back Lukaku, didn't quite work, but they tried to do very similar things. Obviously, you're still having a striker that can hold the ball up, be a little bit physical, but you also want him running those channels as well. It's very similar to what Gyökeres did under Amorim at Sporting, using that big mobile striker to run those channels, and you can play those sort of first-time balls over the top of the opposition press. Here you can see Azpilicueta forced a little bit out wide. You got no passing options. It goes long. Werner's there running that channel, trying to get Chelsea playing a little bit higher up the pitch. Again, this time the ball ends up out wide to Reece James. You see it so often for United. They end up getting forced out wide to the wing back. Not really a passing option there in midfield. They're getting outnumbered in there. So the ball ends up going long. Obviously, you got Werner there again, trying to run those channels, trying to force something a little bit higher up the pitch. It's exactly the same. Højlund, Gyökeres, these systems, they do rely on those strikers winning those duels a little bit higher up the pitch. It's something the United need Højlund to do. If not, I think we are going to end up moving on from it.
Get in! Rasmus! Rasmus! Rasmus!
But I honestly just found this game fascinating. How much of a carbon copy Amorim at United is compared to what Tuchel was doing at Chelsea at the time. And people will argue, well, obviously looking at that, with better players, United can eventually get to that top level. And I hope that we can, and I do think we can. Chelsea also beat Real Madrid in the semi-finals of the competition. We know that's a crazy hard thing to do. You put the prime Kante in United's midfield. Perfect for that 5-2-3 role. Azpilicueta, Rudiger, ideal for those wide centre-back spots. United don't have that personnel at the minute to really make that 5-2-3 system work. So eventually, once we do get that personnel sorted, there's no doubt in my mind we're going to be better than what we are right now. Not really hard. But my major worry with it is it never provided long-term success. You saw Tuchel with it, didn't really work out at Chelsea after a couple of years, never really worked in the Prem, never got them that really high position. And now you can see with Tuchel, recently at Bayern, now at England, he's gone to using more of a 4-at-the-back formation. So he's gone away from using that 5-2-3. So that's what leaves me just a little bit more sceptical. You can see Conte mixing up his styles as well a little bit at the minute. And Conte at Chelsea brought him success. Did it last that long? I'm not so sure. So that's my main question. And it's going to be my main question to you guys. Let me know down in the comments. Do you think this system, playing the 5-2-3, can provide not just success, but long-term success? Let me know.